In today's video, there's a major update coming out of the meeting between Putin and Trump and signals a huge shift. Secondly, we have another Democrat mayor being indicted on felony charges, and DC is finally seeing better days, but people are still protesting. And all of these videos will show you what both sides are saying and give you the bottom line.
There are reports crossing the wires right now that European leaders have been invited to the White House on Monday as well. So that would be President Trump, President Zelensky, and some European partners to be named later. And it means that even though there was no ceasefire as a direct result, an immediate result from this summit in Alaska, the meeting was not a complete waste of time.
If you had to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10,
So I think the meeting was a 10 in the sense that we got along great, and it's good when, two big powers get along, especially when they're nuclear powers. We're number one, they're number two in the world, and it's a big deal. That's a big deal.
This is why Zelensky is coming to the U.S. President Trump says it was determined by all that the best way to end the horrific war between Russia and Ukraine is to go directly to a peace agreement, which would end the war, and not a mere ceasefire agreement, which oftentimes do not hold up.
Okay, so this is a major update and continues to prove that President Trump is not only a strong leader, but he is truly trying to put America first, and he cares about lives. That's why he is finally agreeing that a peace agreement should happen, not a ceasefire deal. Now, as you guys heard, ceasefires are easy to break or go back on, and so it kind of logically makes sense to me. And what also makes sense is the mainstream media's reaction to this, and that's why I want to show you what's going on using Ground News. Now, I would encourage you guys to use this tool because not only do they give you the bottom line upfront bullet points here on the screen, but it'll also show you the biases in the media so you can think for yourself. And in this situation, I'm going to show you an example of that. Look at this. 38% of right-leaning sources are reporting on the story. Only 16% are left-leaning. You see, Democrats and left-leaning media companies do not want to give any credit to President Trump, even when he is attempting to end this war, which could earn him the Nobel Peace Prize.
Between now and then, though, Zelensky is warning on X, based on the political and diplomatic situation around Ukraine and knowing Russia's treachery, we anticipate that in coming days, the Russian army may try to increase pressure and strikes against Ukrainian positions in order to create more favorable political circumstances for talks with global actors. And next up could be a meeting of all three leaders. Putin wants it to be on his turf. We expect that on Monday, President Trump and President Zelensky are going to talk about potential land swaps, parts of Ukraine that Zelensky would be comfortable essentially giving Russia control to. We have to wait, though, to find out exactly where on the map that would be.
Okay, so the only thing about what he just said there was that if you give this land over to Russia, you're basically rewarding them for taking land away from Ukraine. And what's to stop them from doing that again in the future? That has always been the million-dollar question as it pertains to this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Now, before we dive more into that, let's look again at the media and their description of what's happening here. Just today, Mediaite is already attacking President Trump on his posts from Truth Social. They say Trump blurts out victory declaration in the dead of night post, a great and very successful day. And pretty much this has been the entire attitude. It's as if the people in the media know more about peace negotiations than the president himself. Isn't that fascinating? And that's why I encourage you guys to do your own research, and a tool like Ground News will help you do that. So if you want to use this tool for yourself, all you have to do is go to ground.news/Devori, or you could download the mobile app. Just use promo code Devori, and it's going to give you access to everything that I showed you in this video, including 40% off the Vantage plan.
If, in fact, he brokers a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia, one that does not sell out Ukraine, then yes, I'm with Secretary Clinton, and I'd nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know how. I'm prepared. Let me just say this. I proved this to you last week on air when I covered my eyes and Catherine asked me to predict, what's the outcome of the poll. You learned a couple of things. I don't cheat on these things. I really don't know what the results are. I anticipate that President Trump is going to come out on the losing end of this stick when we come back with the results in just a few minutes. But I don't get it. I truly don't get it. That will be Trump derangement syndrome. Because how could you say if he negotiates a fair peace that he's undeserving? I don't understand it. I really don't. I did advance for Vice President George Herbert Walker Bush, so I pay particular attention to the staging of these events. And I thought that the criticism was unwarranted. We forced, here, Tony, what's this guy's name, Tony? We forced Putin to walk a gauntlet of F-35s. As a B-2, flew overhead, I presume the same type of an aircraft that dropped that bomb on the nuclear facilities in Iran. I mean, I think there was a good message that was given to Putin as to American strength. And for making him feel warm so that Trump could try and cut a deal, I have no problem with that.
I'm in total agreement with what Michael had to say there. In fact, I'll show you the clip because we didn't add it into our video yesterday of the B-2 bombers flying over the moment that Putin and Trump arrived, like on that stage. And you can see Putin looking up in the sky. And President Trump was like, yeah, I'm the real deal here. OK, America's not playing around. Take a look. All right, that is really good. And it's fascinating because Democrats are saying that, President Trump pretty much bent the knee and he was weak and he didn't know what he was doing. He was unprepared. I mean, when someone like Putin, who clearly is a killer, we all know that. In fact, you can argue he's one of the worst in history. And you invite him to a military base that is in America. And as soon as he gets off his plane, this guy is pretty much flanked by the force and the impression of how strong our military is. And that's just on the sky. We're not talking about nuclear submarines and all that other stuff, right? Bottom line is, I think that clearly rebukes what the left has been saying about this entire meeting. Now, to add on to that rebuke, and again, this is the second week in a row this guy, Michael Schmerkanish on CNN, continues to at least acknowledge the neutral, objective truth about what's going on here. He brought on a body language expert to prove that what President Trump was doing was not only commanding, confident, but he was the guy in charge. Take a listen.
Let's begin with the clap. The clap by President Trump as Putin is approaching him. What do you make of the clap?
Michael, this is a moment. Remember, when Trump gets to that carpet there, he's waiting. He's in the authority position. By using that clap, he's taking some of the authority out of the moment, going from host into receiver. He offers a rapport and an opportunity to lighten the moment through that clap. It's followed by a smile as he puts his hand out in this very open palm gesture. It's an interesting hand move that he does in order to clap. In that particular, so the clap just takes some of the intensity out of the moment. Even in those moments, keep in mind, Michael, the handshake is a negotiation, an ongoing signal for power. Here, Trump shows deference, followed by pulling the hand in and using these touch gestures to reestablish dominance as they walk down, showing he's in control, he's in command.
All right, we have some behind-the-scenes footage. Can we go to the behind-the-scenes footage and have Chris Ulrich analyze what he sees in this? Hopefully you've seen it or can watch it now. Tell me what you see.
I'm looking at it now, Michael. It is Trump in the middle here. It's an ongoing conversation. Now, you got to frame yourself to fame yourself, we always see. There's Trump in the middle, kind of holding court. He's talking to the president. He's talking to the advisor. And him being in the middle, it's cordial. It's kind. They're open.
Yeah, so according to the language expert, President Trump was in charge and command, and it was a very respectful conversation. And what you guys see here on the screen is when Putin is in the motorcade as they're going to the meeting. Clearly, you could see America's force. You got the Apache helicopters there. I'm not too sure what the model number is on those fighter jets, but I'm sure they are the best of the best. I mean, this is what he saw. So it wasn't like, there was peaches and cream and candy and ice cream and, President Trump kissing him all over the face. And I say all that because that's how Democrats see all this, unfortunately. But it just isn't the reality.
I'm hearing all the criticism. Oh, my God, they rolled out a red carpet as if he should have kneed him in the groin. the minute that he stepped off the plane. I mean, he's trying to cut a deal. President Trump, is trying to cut a deal. I'm willing to give him credit for that so long as he doesn't sell out Ukraine in the process, and there's no suggestion that he's done so at this stage.
Yeah, and on that very point, isn't it interesting how President Trump has hosted multiple phone calls with both leaders and has met with Putin face to face? In that way, you got the B-2 bomber flying over Putin. You heard the body language expert. He's done all this, and it's only 6 months into his presidency. Can people remind me, what did Biden do during this entire time? Oh, that's right, nothing. So for all the criticism out there, I think people, again, are falling victim to their Trump derangement syndrome. And if you guys need an example, look no further than John Bolton himself. Take a listen.
Putin achieved most of what he wanted. Trump achieved very little. And I will say one other thing. I thought Trump looked very tired up there. I mean, very tired. Not disappointed, tired. And we'll have to reflect on what that means.
Vladimir Putin said it.
I mean, just tell me you don't know what you're talking about without telling me you don't know what you're talking about. As you guys know on this show, I don't like to sound as if I know exactly what the president is thinking. Like, that is the most ignorant thing you can do if you have the responsibility of informing the public, right? All I'm doing is showing you what both sides are saying. Me and you are using our critical thinking skills and common sense to form our own opinions and not just eat up what both sides are telling us to think. That's the purpose of the show. And unfortunately, these people are supposed to be the experts when it comes to journalism, and that's their analysis. All right, so let's move on to this next clip. Now, this is the president sitting down with Sean Hannity, and this was recorded yesterday. But he spoke about this point that, listen, this war really doesn't impact America in the same way that it impacts Europe. And even though he doesn't say it verbatim, he's pretty much saying, hey, I'm doing the world a favor here in trying to wrap up this war. Take a listen.
This does not impact the United States as much as it does our allies in Europe.
It's true.
The Middle East, when we get involved in the Middle East, but you're doing it anyway. Now, why? Is it to save lives? Do you want a safer world?
Yeah, number one, to save lives in all cases, because wars are wars. When you see what would have happened with Cambodia as an example. Now, I'm not involved, but I was involved in negotiating a trade deal, and I said, you guys are going to be fighting Thailand, Cambodia, so many different. Look at India. Take a look at India and Pakistan. They were shooting down airplanes already, and that would have been maybe nuclear. I would have said it was going to go nuclear, and I was able to get it done. Number one is lives, and number two is everything else. Wars are very bad, and if you can avoid them, and I seem to have an ability to end them, to get people together.
Yeah, because that's who the president is naturally, right? He's a deal maker. He's great at the interpersonal communication with people, if that's what you guys want to call it. You could tell he's very outgoing, extrovert. I mean, this is his life, okay? This is nothing new. Whether he was the president or not, he'd be doing something like this anyway, brokering deals. So it's natural for him, and that's why I think he has a better chance of finding some success with getting them to the table and coming up with some type of peace agreement than a Joe Biden, as an example.
He drove China and Russia together. That's not good. If you are just a minor student of history, it's the one thing you didn't want to do, because they're basically natural enemies. Russia has tremendous amounts of land. China has tremendous amounts of people, and China needs Russia land. But because of pure stupidity, they were driven together.
Now, there's plenty of opinion about the dynamic of Russia and China. You could really get into depth about that in the historical context. Bottom line, though, is those two countries should not actually be collaborating with each other, because then that definitely becomes a bigger threat to America. No question about it. And so you'd rather them be separate than together. So that's why you've seen the president not only make certain statements, issue certain executive orders from day one in an effort to push back on China's agenda. We saw that with the Panama Canal. And I think what the president is doing here is great political instincts, but also great negotiating skills. And the people who are the loudest are people who are shit at negotiation. Excuse my French. Okay, let's go to our next story. And this is really sweet justice, okay? Because the people who are screaming the loudest about President Trump being corrupt, about President Trump not being able to wrap up this war, call whatever criticism out that you want. This is the type of story that continues to prove that Democrats have no place to speak. The New Orleans city mayor has been indicted on 18 counts of felony charges for defrauding the city. Take a listen.
All right, after becoming the first female mayor in New Orleans, LaToya Cantrell is now the first sitting mayor in the city's history to face federal charges. Cantrell and her former bodyguard are now facing 18 felony counts combined, including conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction. Prosecutors accuse the pair of scheming to hide a romantic relationship and using taxpayer money for personal ends. CNN's Rafael Romo is joining us right now with more on the reporting that you found.
That's right. And we are hearing from her attorney now, but it is a very short statement and it doesn't really address the accusations, Fred. And the reality is that local media reports about the relationship and the couple's alleged conduct began circulating in November 2022. But it was not until yesterday that a federal grand jury indicted New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell on 18 counts, including conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of justice, and making false statements. According to Michael Simpson, acting U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Louisiana, Cantrell and her former bodyguard, identified as Jeffrey Vappy, engaged in a nearly 3-year fraud scheme that, in his words, exploited their public authority and positions. The city of New Orleans told the Associated Press in a statement that it was aware of the indictment and that the mayor's attorney is reviewing it. Until his review is complete, that the city will not comment further on this matter.
Okay, so let me read this list to you so you know that I'm not just being hyperbolic here, okay? Lovely Warren, Rochester, New York, October 2020, 2 felony counts for breaking campaign finance rules. Shang Tao, Oakland, California, January 2025, charged with federal bribery conspiracy regarding a pay-to-play scheme involving city contracts. LaToya Cantrell, you just heard of her situation. We also have Monique Owens out of Michigan, originally arrested on a felony for false pretenses related to COVID relief grant application. Then you have Chokwe Lambamba, I might have butchered that, from Jackson, Mississippi, Democrat, indicted federally in November 2024 on bribery and other corruption offenses. And then you have Eric Adams, and we already know he was indicted in 2024 on felony charges, including conspiracy, bribery, wire fraud, and accepting illegal campaign contributions. Anyways, the point is what? That it seems to me there's a pattern here since 2020 of Democrat mayors involved in corruption and fraud schemes. But the party acts like they are almighty and they are innocent, and clearly they are not. Now let's continue on this story. Take a look.
According to Simpson, the couple took many steps to hide their alleged scheme and perpetuate their fraud, including using WhatsApp to exchange over 15,000 messages, pictures, and audio clips in an 8-month period, using the platform to intimidate subordinates, harass a citizen, and lie to colleagues and associates. They are also accused of lying to FBI agents and giving the government an affidavit with false statements. According to the indictment, the scheme started as early as October 2021, when the relationship began, until June 2024, when Vappy retired from the police department. Simpson said he wanted to make it clear that the indictment does not allege that our relationship constitutes a crime or that the alleged criminal activity occurred on merely a handful of days or involved discrete actions.
Rather, it reflects the prosecution of 2 public officials alleged to have engaged in a years-long continuing fraud scheme that used public money for personal ends by exploiting their power and their authority.
Citizens of New Orleans work hard to provide for their families, and they expect their public officials to be honest stewards of those funds. And today's indictment outlines a betrayal of that trust by Mayor Cantrell and Mr. Vappy.
Now, allow me to at least be objective here and fair. Brandon Holt, mayor of Pineview, Georgia, Republican, was arrested in January 2024, 75 counts of theft for allegedly stealing nearly $65,000 from the town and transferred funds to his personal account via Cash App. He ultimately was suspended by Governor Kemp And then we also know the situation with Rudy Giuliani, who was the former mayor of New York City. And so, listen, there's corruption on both sides, no question. But if you actually do the research, you'll find more of it, if not most of it, on the left. Okay. But the reason why I wanted to share this story with you guys today, because the people who are screaming the loudest about what President Trump is doing, they're screaming that he's killing democracy. They seem to be blind at their own leaders and how they are corrupt and committing crimes against the very people they claim they are protecting. And this takes us to our next update, and it's about Washington, D.C. and how mayors across the country have reacted to the threat. Really, it's not a threat. I would say the help of federal authorities going to their city to clean up crime. And we're doing this because they already have cleaned up the streets of Washington, D.C., have got the homeless off the streets as well. We'll show you some clips of that. But let's start with this montage. Take a listen.
Trump is proposing and threatening to militarize cities, which is, unconstitutional. It's no coincidence, though, that these are cities that have large populations of black and brown people. These are cities, all of these cities, where the crime rates are going down.
But when you look at what the president's saying, the fact that my city and all the others called out by the president on Sunday, led by black mayors, are all making historic progress on crime. But they're the ones getting called out. And it tells you everything that you need to know.
He is provoking on sending federal troops, the National Guard, into cities to plunder them, though those entities do not have policing power. So they can't even do the very thing that he claims that he wants them to do.
All right. Again, talk is cheap. And the people who are the loudest, the people who criticize Trump all day long, because that's all they know, they're actually doing the thing they accuse him of doing. And while they're screaming and melting down, the streets of D.C. are finally seeing better days. Take a look at this clip.
This is crazy.
Now, of course, if you're a conservative, and I would imagine a Republican at that, you want to be able to drive by a park that's in your city and see that it is upkept, it's clean, there are no homeless, no drugs, no crime, and no gangs. I think everybody wants to see that. But maybe not everybody, because while this is happening in D.C., people are continuing to protest this operation. Take a look.
Now, as we make noise for those standing up, we gotta also be honest. We here today, all of us, are beautiful together. But when fascists take over the Capitol, when they send in the National Guard, the FBI, hunting down our youth, attacking the homeless, these streets should be flooded.
I wanted you to see that clip because it represents the reaction and the attitude from Democrats. They are literally trying to justify why they are going to go against the U.S. Constitution, why they will violate their own principles as pertains to their idea of what a democracy is. Now, they claim they're fighting for democracy, but what they are doing is willing to destroy the democracy because they hate the president that much. Now, of course, I have an example of that. Take a look at this.
The house is on fire. We have to stop pretending like we don't smell the smoke. It's time for America to wake up and put our morals above our manners. Now is not the time to engage in trying to play patty cake with a party that's been captured by fascists and neo-Confederates. There is no bipartisanship anymore with a party that is intent on maintaining minority rule between tech oligarchs, white supremacists, and Christian nationalists. They want a minority-run government, and they're willing to do this at any means necessary. We must fight back. I think that we will be judged not by what we do, but by what we don't do to future generations. Now is the time to lean into the instinct to say that we must meet with proportionate response to the forces that we face, and so we can look our children, our future generations in the face and say we did everything in our power to stand up and fight back, to save our democracy. Because if we're serious about the threat of fascism, that means that there is nothing off the table. If we're really serious about the threat that we face, that means we'll use everything on the table to fight back.
Interesting. So what's on the table? A potential assassination define that exactly. You see, this is why I'm telling you, it's a mental illness with people on the left. They look at politics and they see what's happening in our country and they allow it to control them emotionally. That's why they don't have any critical thinking skills. You see, even though I talk about politics every day, this is not my life, ladies and gentlemen. My life starts with my relationship with God, Jesus Christ, my wife, and my son. That comes first. But these people over here, they're so caught up, they can't think for themselves. Mentally, it's an epidemic on the left. I really do believe that. Now, the polar opposite to what they were saying sounds more reasonable to me. Take a listen.
It's about human suffering. It's about returning the capital city of the United States of America to the people, it's a federal district. National Review actually had a great piece that said, the District of Columbia having home rule is a privilege, not a right. Yeah. And over the past 5 decades, they have clearly shown that they can't govern themselves through democratic rule for all of those years. They have a corrupt police department that's been cooking the data on crime being lower. They haven't had a crime lab, forensic lab, for the past 4 years, unable to prosecute crimes as a result of that. They are unable to keep their streets clean. All of the parks have been completely overrun by violent, homeless, and drug users, by gangs. And I was in Union Station this morning, and Union Station is one of the great architectural buildings of the country. And it used to be amazing a couple of years ago, and then it fell into decay. There were drug dealers, gangsters. It was very dangerous. Americans couldn't go there just outside of the Capitol, not to mention welcoming in dignitaries from foreign countries to the capital of the country.
I use it all the time, by the way.
It was safe today. Safe today, quiet. There was nobody screaming.
Cleaned out the homeless.
Cleaned out. There were families everywhere having a great time visiting Washington, D.C. And so it can be done, and it is being done thanks to the president.
Good. So that analysis clearly demonstrates an individual who is in control of her faculties. She was able to articulate what's actually going on here. And the unfortunate part is half the country won't do that. I think they can't do it because they're too caught up, as I stated previously. I showed you plenty of clips on why that is. And the interesting thing about this is once you give yourself over to this emotion of hate, you're unable to see the difference between right and wrong. You pretty much become allergic to common sense. See, common sense would say, hey, listen, we may not agree with the strategy that President Trump is deploying, but we do agree with the goal of keeping our cities safe. So where can we meet the president in the middle? And how can we communicate that to our constituents so they're not slipping into a mental illness? Okay, let's get to your guys' reaction in the comment section below to these stories. We got to follow up more with that meeting between President Trump and Putin. The backlash continues. What is your take, especially about the B-2 bombers flying over Putin when he arrived on the base? Also, what is your take when it comes to the Democrat mayor out of New Orleans defrauding the city with her bodyguard that she was in an intimate relationship with? Doesn't that kind of sound familiar again? Fonnie Willis type vibes? I mean, it's fascinating that Democrats have nothing to say about that, but I want to hear what you have to say. And finally, D.C. looks better, but Democrats won't appreciate it. Anyways, give me your thoughts about everything we discussed in this video in the comment section below. Now, in our next video, if you missed it, Putin made a shocking admission about Trump. He confirmed exactly what the president has been saying day one, even before running for president. And I think you want to pay attention to it. So if you're interested in that video, more stories from yesterday, all you have to do is click on it because it's coming up right now.